Do you know that very popular dessert in Japan, caramel custard pudding? It's sold in supermarkets and cake shops, but nowadays you can buy great tasting pudding at any convenience store. I think it's hard to find it overseas, so today I will share an easy way to make it at home with only 3 ingredients. No oven is required. First, let's make the caramel part. Spread sugar evenly in a pan or small pot. I use granulated sugar. Maybe it's called custard sugar in some countries. Spreading the sugar thinly and widely in this way allows it to dissolve quickly and evenly with little water. Add water. Allow the water to flow over the entire surface and make sure all the sugar is dissolved. Warm over medium heat. Never touch at this time. The key to this caramelizing process is that it's not touched until the final stage. After a while, the sugar water comes to a boil. For some reason, the center section has a weak boil. After waiting for a while, the whole mixture comes to a complete boil. After about 7 minutes, some of the colors begin to change. And soon, the overall color became more caramel-like. If you continue to cook it like this, it will become hot and burn at once. So add a tablespoon of hot water to lower the temperature a little. This sugar water is quite hot, like hot oil. Therefore, be very careful not to burn yourself when you pour water into it, as it splashes around quite a bit. After adding water, mix with spatula and let the color darken just a little more. Do not let it warm up too long here or it will burn. From here, stir over low heat. Turning the heat on and off until dark color caramel is obtained. When it reaches this level of color, pour it into a pudding cup. Immediately transfer the caramel to a container, because if you leave it in the pan, the preheat of the pan will overcook the caramel even if the heat is turned off. Fill the bottom of cup with this amount. Do this quickly as the caramel will harden quickly. By the way, these are heat-resistant pudding cups, each 150 ml in size. Any heat-resistant container is fine, including disposal container. Prepare whatever you prefer. Next, let's make pudding liquid. Heat milk in the pot. Warm over medium heat, stirring occasionally. Turn off the heat just before bringing to a boil. So the heat should not be too high. While the milk is heating, crack the eggs into a large bowl. Mix thoroughly once here. Mix the white and yolk thoroughly. Add granulated sugar. Mix the sugar and eggs thoroughly. Today's recipe is basic, so it calls for 2 eggs. But I would like to make a thick egg pudding with a few more eggs next time. Check out the milk. I need to watch it carefully to make sure it heats up well but does not boil over. The process of mixing the eggs and sugar mentioned earlier is easy and quick, so it may be important to keep a close eye on the milk once that is done. Turn off the heat and pour it into the bowl just mentioned. Do not pour it all in at once, but pour it several times. Mix thoroughly each time. It's wonderfully tasty when made with just milk, but I think you can make an even richer and tastier pudding by adding a little heavy cream to the milk. I will research the best formula of milk and heavy cream and will share it with you all next time. Pour this into the pudding cup, but transfer it once into a measuring cup for easy transfer. It's better to strain and transfer at this time. Gently pour into a cup with caramel. Be sure to use a strainer to put it in. At this time, I have put it in quite vigorously. This is a bad example. This worked fine, but when you do it, pour a little more gently in smaller quantities. This will result in a smoother pudding with fewer air bubbles. Fill all 4 cups equally. I adjusted it with a spoon afterwards. Squash air bubbles on the rim of the cup with a toothpick. Larger bubbles are easy to break, but smaller ones are difficult. Any tips on how to do this well? Spread a thin cloth over a deep frying pan or pot and place the cups on it. This way, the cup will be stable without moving. Pour the water into the cup so that it comes halfway up the cup. I recommend that you prepare a pan and the cloth in advance so that you can start steaming as soon as you put the pudding liquid into the cups. Cover and steam over low heat for about 50 minutes. The time it takes may vary depending on the pot and the heat, but if the contents have solidified when the container is lightly shaken, it's ready. Once cooked, let cool thoroughly before placing in the fridge. If you let it sit overnight in the fridge, it hardens firmly and is cold and tasty. If you can't wait that long, let it cool to room temperature after it's done and then put it in the freezer for a few minutes. It tastes good. This is what I chilled in the fridge overnight. The pudding on the left is the one I bought, and the one on the right is the one I made this time. Once removed from the fridge, let sit at room temperature for a bit before eating. This will allow the caramel to melt. You can eat directly from the cap. If you want to eat it on the plate, melt the caramel completely. Prepare boiling water in a bowl. Just enough to cover the caramel part, so a little hot water will do. Place the cup here and wait for 3 minutes. When eating this way, it's also recommended to let it sit at room temperature for about 15 minutes before placing it in boiling water. To remove the pudding nicely from the cup, prepare a hard, thin spatula like this one. I use a palette knife. After 3 minutes, wipe off the water. My husband is more careful and sensitive than I am, so I asked him to do it for me. First, insert a palette knife just a little bit into the rim and peel off just the top of the pudding from the cup. The edges are a little bumpy and fragile, so gently insert the palette knife. Then, insert the palette knife up to the bottom of the cup and rotate the cup as if you were peeling off all sides. Place the plate on top and turn it over. Shaking the pudding cup and plate gently while keeping them completely attached like this will remove the pudding successfully. The pudding is so rich and delicious that it's hard to believe it was made with only 3 ingredients. They are also relatively low-calorie snacks, as each has about 200 calories. Taste the first pudding as it is, then add a little arrangement to the next. In Japan, there is a menu called pudding a la mode that was popular in the 80s. My husband loves it, so I tried to recreate it at home. Top with whipped cream and fruit of your choice. The pineapple and pudding were especially great together. My husband was very pleased. Here is another way to arrange it. Sprinkle with a little granulated sugar. and sear with a kitchen torch. It was a little low on sugar. A little more sugar will burn the entire surface. This way, the surface becomes crispy and caramelized, making it extremely tasty. Please try making delicious Japanese pudding at home.